So guys, let's talk about Errol Spence and Keith Thurman. Guys, a lot of you asked me what do I think happens if Keith Thurman was to fight Errol Spence. A lot of you are saying Keith Thurman's a better overall boxer. Listen, Keith Thurman may be a better boxer than Errol Spence. But I think Errol Spence is a very good boxer. But the problem is, I think Errol Spence is overall a complete fighter. In the sense that I think Keith Thurman can box and he can fight. But the problem is, I don't think Keith Thurman has got the punch resistance that Errol Spence has got. And I think Errol Spence could bully Keith Thurman on the inside. I think Errol Spence is probably the biggest welterweight out there. I think he's massive. And I think he could bully Keith Thurman on the inside. And I think the body shots could wear Keith Thurman down. I think that would be a huge problem for Keith Thurman. I think Keith Thurman will have his moments, but I think Errol Spence will grind him down. I've always thought that Errol Spence knocks out Keith Thurman. And listen, Keith Thurman's a great fighter. We all know that. Keith Thurman proved that in the Manny Pacquiao fight, that he's a great fighter. But and not just a Manny Pacquiao fight, he proved it in the Danny Garcia fight. He proved it in the Sean Porter fight. But I just think Errol Spence is not just a Sean Porter where he can bully you on the inside. Errol Spence can also box. Errol Spence he can box at range. He can box on the inside. He's got a good chin. He's overall a complete fighter. The reason why I said I think Keith Thurman should jump at this fight now is because I think that we don't know how Errol Spence is, right, after the accident. And Keith Thurman has an opportunity to catch Errol Spence cold, in the sense Errol Spence wouldn't have fought for a long time. Errol Spence is coming back from a horrific accident. We don't know how he's physically or mentally. And this is an opportunity for Keith Thurman to jump in there and potentially, become a unified champion again. And, he could catch Errol Spence cold. But I would favor, if everything's, okay with Spence, I would favor Spence heavily in that fight. But I do think Keith Thurman should jump at the opportunity because Errol Spence has always wanted to fight Keith Thurman, right? So I'm pretty sure if Keith Thurman comes to the table and campaigns for that fight, I think Errol Spence may even want to fight him. Now, we all know that Errol Spence has got a mandatory in Danny Garcia, which he may have to fulfill. But then after that, who knows? Yes, Errol Spence may want Pacquiao, he may want Crawford, we don't know. But if Keith Thurman calls out for that fight, who knows? He may even get it. He may get that fight with him and Thurman. So I think Keith Thurman should call out Errol Spence, because I think if the Danny Garcia fight doesn't happen, we don't know what's going on with that Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia might go down another avenue. Who knows? He may even get the Pacquiao fight. We don't know, right? And that might leave an opportunity for Keith Thurman. I like that fight between Keith Thurman and Errol Spence. I do like that fight. I think if that was to happen next, there'll be a lot of question marks. If Errol Spence fights Danny Garcia, beats Danny Garcia, then you would say he'd go. If that fight then gets made, he'd go in a huge favorite against Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman needs to catch Errol Spence cold right now, because we don't know what after the accident, how Errol Spence is going to be. Is he going to be 100%? Errol Spence may be damaged goods after that accident. We just don't know. Hopefully not. But again, Keith Thurman could take a chance. Keith Thurman's potentially damaged goods. We don't know, because when he came back from his injury, he didn't look right. In the Lopez fight, and he didn't have that same oomph about him, that same desire that he had before the injury. And the injury for Keith Thurman came at a wrong time for him, really. But I do think him and a fight between Keith Thurman and Errol Spence is a great fight. However, I do see Errol Spence knocking out Keith Thurman, if I'm honest. That's my take on it. I see Errol Spence winning by knockout. But that's just my opinion. What's your guys' opinion? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. So guys, what's going on? Guys, you know what a fight that I would think would be a dynamite fight that I would love to watch? Terence Crawford with Keith Thurman. I've always wanted to see that fight. I just don't know why. I think their styles would gel, and I think it would be a great fight. And I think Personally, I think that's a great fight right now. I think that's a great fight to make. I think Keith Thurman's got nowhere to go. Keith Thurman is saying that I could wipe out Spence, Crawford, and all of them, right? So if Keith Thurman is that confident, right? If Keith Thurman genuinely thinks he could wipe out Spence, Crawford, and he wants to come back to the top, take the fight with Crawford. Keith Thurman's in a situation where he's not world champion anymore. He got beat by Pacquiao. He needs to come back with a bang. And the Crawford fight is a great fight for him. You know, I actually think the Brook fight, people know that Brook's past his best. He may be able to put up a decent fight, a better fight than what Khan did against Crawford. But I don't think Brook is as good as Thurman at this point. I think Thurman still has a lot left. Even though I think that hunger is gone, it's not the same after the injury he suffered. I still think Thurman's got enough left to give Crawford a really tough fight. And I think a lot of you will agree with me that you would prefer to see the Thurman fight over the Brook fight. You know, although Brook wants to fight, I don't think a lot of the boxing fans really want to see that fight. And they won't be really excited about it. I think the Thurman fight, I think that's a great fight. I think if Thurman can get back to even 80, 70, 90% of him, Thurman can box, Thurman can fight, Thurman can punch. That's a hard fight for Crawford. Thurman can move. Because let's not forget, Brook and Khan came before Thurman. So they've had longer careers. Even though Brook's not really fought the high level, those two have had a long career, Brook and Khan. So they're not that fresh, whereas Thurman's still fresh. Although Thurman, Brook, and Khan were at one point seen as the top welterweights, these three. Remember, Paulie Malinaja hailed these three as the best welterweights out there. Brook and Khan have been around longer. So Thurman's still fresh. Although Thurman's probably going on to the other side himself, Thurman's still fresh. So for me, Thurman and Crawford is a dynamite fight. Dynamite fight. And I want to see it. I think Crawford would probably pick him apart at the end. But you never know. If Thurman can catch him, Thurman's a good boxer. Thurman's got good legs. That's a good fight. That's a good fight. Very good fight. And I think especially Thurman's in a position where he's in the Who Needs Me club. He's not world champion. You know, Spence and that are not looking at Thurman for a fight. But Crawford needs fights. And I'm pretty sure Bob Arum and Crawford will look to make that fight. If Thurman comes forward and says, I want to fight Crawford. Because you've got to understand, all of these guys, you know, Danny Garcia's matched up with with Spence. Right? Pacquiao might be matched up with Garcia. Right? It leaves Thurman and Porter. Porter may find himself in a fight. Right? It leaves Porter, Thurman, and Crawford. But Thurman, right? I would prefer to see Thurman, Crawford. I think that's a brilliant fight. I think you got two boxers. I think you got one big welterweight in Thurman. I think you got a genius in Crawford. I think it makes for a great fight. I want to see that fight. Generally want to see that fight. I think that fight would be a great fight for both guys at this point in their career. Thurman can win. Thurman's putting himself back at the top, even in a better position than he was in, because he would just be beating one of the pound for pound guys, right? If Crawford wins, he would have that solid name at welterweight that people said that he hasn't got. So it's a win-win for both people. It's a win-win for both, I think. I think Crawford-Thurman is a dynamite fight. Dynamite fight. And I hope they can make that fight happen. What do you guys think? Is that a fight that you guys want to see? Would you prefer that fight over the Brook fight? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.